I really want to talk to Essex.
I know you want to talk to Essex.
Of course I do.
I'm also going to ask you to do a 1-up so I can run away for 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. That's perfectly fine. Oh, no, that is focusing on you.
That's the wrong one. You just saw host and just hit it. You're like, of course I'm the host. Let me just hit that one.
Stop. All right. We're talking to...
Hello, Eric.
Essex. Hello.
Yeah, hi.
You're good?
All right. I'll be right back.
Okay. How's it going? What do you want to talk about?
So, about 2 weeks ago, you brought up this really interesting idea that I didn't have the words to describe myself, but I knew I held. And you called it, what?
Context-dependent morality.
Context-dependent morality.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had thoughts on it and weren't particularly keen on it. May I ask why?
So just to kind of contextualize for people who hadn't seen or that, before, I think it was around the veganism discussion, right? That
It was, but you were also veering into Christianity stuff, and I'm more on the Christianity side of things and using it to... Would you like me to have a stab at describing it?
I would love to know what you believe, and then maybe we can talk about what I believe so that we have something to compare and contrast here. So what do you believe?
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, so what do you believe?
So when I read, I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. When I read welcome back. When I read the Bible, I see statements like women can't talk or slavery is a good idea. And one of the ways I get around that being icky is that I say, okay, the society we have nowadays is different and more developed and has no more need for stuff like keeping women suppressed,
okay,
etc., etc.
So, I guess my question here is the reason why there's a rub there is because when I was a Christian, and in speaking to many Christians, there's this idea that God is unchanging and has set out these moral standards that are just set in stone, that they do not change. They always have and they always will be. And so there's no room for context there. There's no room for what the society is or how, they're treating each other, because to have that kind of set of eternal mandates means that you don't get to look at it that way. You don't get to approach it that way. Because if you do, that means that God cannot be that moral standard, cannot be that moral guide. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure. I'm not so sure.
So do you think God changes in your mind? I don't want to straw man you. Do you think think God is unchanging, or do you think that God changes over time?
I think God is unchanging, but I think the state of the world changes, and thus the expression of God's nature appears to change.
Oh, so I think this is someone who. Do you want to hop in, V?
Yeah. So if someone has already said this, I apologize. I think where I come down is less where I think we disagree on what the implications of a context-dependent morality is. I don't think it necessitates a changeable God, but I do think that it makes it impossible to pinpoint any kind of objective morality today, because it could just be another iteration that is not ultimately in line with that objective God. So the issue is not, this thing, slavery, whatever was okay back then and it's not now because of context. What we are coming up against is not, okay, God changed. Maybe our understanding of God changed, but they thought they had it back then. We think we have it now. It could be in another 3,000 years, it's completely different. So we cannot make any claims about what objective morality is because we have already admitted that our context is the only thing that is really influencing our morality. And at that point, it's kind of tomato, right?
Yeah, the guy.
Because at that point,
there is no lawgiver if the laws are constantly changing.
Or even if there is a lawgiver and we are misunderstanding that lawgiver to the extent that we cannot point back and say this is what the lawgiver says, then there might as well not be one. So we are in a subjective moral world, even if there is an objective moral lawgiver, because we don't have access to it. That's where I come down.
Damn.
I never quite had it explained that way. I've always had a slightly strawman version of that opinion, and it makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Lee.
Absolutely. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Where are you pushing back on?
I feel like Essex is taking the process theology route.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. Do you know about process theology, Essex? Is that kind of where you're coming from?
No, I'm not familiar with the term process theology.
So, from my understanding, and I know Mason, Jacob, I get it if you're watching. Process theology essentially is God exists, God influences the world, God has a say in morality, but God doesn't know any more than we do at any given point, and God changes alongside us, and we influence each other. So God is influencing us, we are influencing God, and therefore we can try and get a good moral sense of where we're going based on what they would consider God's influence or their conscience or, moral standards of the day. But the reason that we have varying moral structures throughout time is that not only have we changed, God has also changed.
That's the process theology outlook. Now
which is interesting, but unfalsifiable. So
yeah, but yeah.
And it's not a proposition that I would tend to agree with either.
Okay, where are you coming from?
So it's a good thing we didn't strawman. Okay,
yeah.
I was starting to strawman you, Essex. I apologize.
That's quite okay. Because what's happening in my head right now is what exactly was it that they said? The straw man of no one's actually walked me through the links to get me from, there's differences in what other Christians believe and what I believe, all the way to, therefore there's not a moral God. And I think I agree with that. So I'm not trying so much of a Christian anymore.
Whoa.
Hey.
I'm going to keep thinking about it, and I'm probably going to say goodbye for now, and let you get to some other callers.
Hey, Essex, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely call back once you've thought about it, because if there's a hole in where I'm coming from, I want to know about it. And if you are convinced by it, we also want to know and what next steps might be from there. So,
especially because you sound very reasonable.
Yeah,
so,
awesome.
If it convinces you, we want to know.
Okay, it sounds like a plan. And have a good day. And say goodbye to the chair for me. Bye-bye.
Will do. Goodbye. Wow. We
I love that.
Our first online deconversion process starting to happen there.
We've had a few, but man, that is fun, especially because they're really, really diving in and investigating. And
I freaking loved that call.
We want people to believe things for good reasons, not because they agree with us, but because they've applied the best tools available and have come to a conclusion for good reasons.
And just gotten other perspectives. I think the theme of this call, this series of calls this week is, I haven't heard it put in that particular way before. Let me go back and think about it. And that is beautiful. That is skepticism, ladies and gentlemen.
And we love it.
To see it.